Welcome to the Synchronous Remote Replication demonstration. This demonstration will cover synchronous remote replication for block and file storage resources. First, the synchronous fiber channel ports of the replicating systems are identified, and then replication communications between the systems are created. Then, replication sessions for the resources are created. A loss of access to the production site is simulated, and replication failover and failback operations are performed. Data access is also demonstrated after each replication operation. In the first part of this demonstration, we're going to identify the synchronous fiber channel ports on the replicating systems. We're going to use UEM CLI to do that. So from this client, we're going to run the UEM CLI command remote sys show-detail. And from its output, we see the synchronous fiber channel ports are fiber channel port 4 of SPA and SPB. And now we'll run the same command, but to the peer replicating system. And its synchronous fiber channel ports are also fiber channel port 4 of SPA and SPB. So now we can establish fiber channel connectivity between these fiber channel ports, either through a zone fabric connection or a direct connection between the corresponding ports. In this section of the demonstration, we're going to create synchronous replication communications between the two systems involved in replication. So from Unisphere, the protection and mobility section, we're going to create interfaces on SPA and SPB, and we're going to use the virtual sync replication management port. It lives on the physical management port. So we'll assign IP addressing to SPA and SPB that's similar to the management port IP addressing, since it uses the same physical port. The interfaces have been created. Now we'll perform the same operation on the peer system. And we'll again select that virtual sync replication management port, assign the SPA and SPB addressing for the interfaces. And those interfaces have been created successfully. The next operation is to create replication connection between the two systems. So we'll select replication, go to the connections tab, and create a replication connection between these two systems. So we'll need the remote system IP address, the management IP address, and the management credentials. We'll also need to input the management password of the local system. And we need to select the connection mode. In this case, it will be synchronous. And we can now apply those settings. The replication connection only needs to be done from one of the two systems. And we see that replication connection has been created between the two systems. Now we'll go to the peer system and check that connection from its perspective. And we see that connection does indeed exist. We're going to select it and perform a verify and update operation just to verify this connection from the peer's perspective. The verify and update operation is required to run if you did change anything with the interfaces or anything with the connection. And the connection has been verified, so now with those communications created, we can now create replication sessions. All right, in this part of the demonstration, we're going to create replication sessions for two ones. We've got the communications all set, so we can now configure replication. And in this case, we're going to configure a session while we create a new LUN. So we're going to configure a new LUN, and we'll step through its wizard. We'll skip the configuring access step, as well as skip the snapshots step. In the replication step, we're going to select the option to enable replication, and we'll select a synchronous replication mode. You see it's going to replicate to Unity A, so from Unity B to Unity A. In the destination LUN configuration, we see the pool that will be used to create the LUN replica. And we'll step through the wizard. In the summary page, we see what the LUN configuration will be and the replication configuration will be. And we'll initiate the creation of the LUN. The LUN gets created, and the replication session for the LUN gets created as well. Close this, and we'll go to the replication section to take a look at the session. And we see the session that was created, and it's in a syncing mode, so that LUN will need to do a full synchronization to the destination, and that will take some amount of time. So the sync state is it's out of sync, and it's currently syncing. So after some amount of time, that full synchronization completes, and we see the session is an active state. Going to its properties, we see the sync state is consistent, meaning the full synchronization has completed. Now we can take a look at the LUN itself. In the properties of the LUN, we see the LUN was created on SPB. If you go to the Replication tab, it's the source of replication, and its sync state is consistent. So now let's go to the destination system, Unity A, and look at its replication sessions. And there it is. We look at its properties. You see its sync state of in sync. You can go look at that LUN that got created, the new LUN. And from its properties, we can see that that LUN was created on SPB on the destination. From its replication tab, we see its local role as destination, and it's in a in-sync state. Now we can create a session for an existing LUN. That's the other way to create a session. So we select an existing LUN, go to its properties page. We see this LUN is on SPA. We'll select its replication tab. And because replication isn't set up, we have an option, a button to configure replication. It launches a wizard to create a session. We'll select synchronous replication mode. It's going to replicate from Unity A to Unity B. In the destination step, there's a bit more configurability to the pool to be used on the destination. We'll leave it as it was selected. Step through, there's the summary of the session to be created, and we'll initiate that session creation. And the session has been created. So we'll close this window. We see it's in a syncing state, a newly created session. We'll go to the replications session. You see that session currently syncing, looking at its properties. See, it's in a sync state of out of sync, and it's currently syncing, so that full synchronization is taking place. And after some amount of time, that session will go to an active state. And looking at its properties, you can see it's in a sync state of consistent. Now we can go to the peer system, the destination system, and we see the creation of that destination replica on the destination. We see it was created on SPA. From the replication tab, you can see its role is a destination, and it's in a sync state of consistent. Going to the replication section, we see the session for the existing one. Looking at its properties, see it's in a consistent state and active. So we've created 2 new replication sessions. In this part of the demonstration, we're going to perform session failover and failback. We'll simulate a failure. So to begin with, we're going to the destination Unity system, and we're going to select the replica and configure host access to that replica so that a host at the destination site will be able to access the LUN. So we'll access the LUN's host tab and configure the access to the LUN for host Win12B. Okay, with that configuration complete, we'll close this window, and we're going to the primary host Win11A that has access to the source LUN on the source site, and it has access to it as the volume sync rep protected drive letter E. And we're going to write a bit of data to this LUN during normal operations. So we'll create a text document, and inside that text document we'll write a line indicating that it was written by the primary host Win11A on site A during normal production. We'll just reopen that to make sure it's saved correctly. So normal operations. Now we've simulated loss of communication to the source site. So we're going to perform a failover for that specific existing LUN session. So we'll select the session, go to the More Actions drop-down, and select Failover. And we see the message which basically says that the destination or the replica will be made read-write with this failover operation. So we'll select the failover operation. And we see that session now is in a failed over state. So now we can go to our host, Win12B, and we'll open Server Manager and configure this host to have access to that new disk device. So we'll go to File and Storage Services, Volumes, Disks, and we don't really see this host having access to the LUN. So we'll have to rescan the storage.
And after that rescan, we do see the device and it's offline. So we'll bring it online. All right. So that disk device is online to the host now. Now we see the sync protected drive letter E. We see the text document that was put on by the primary host. We see the line of text that was put there. We'll update that document to indicate it was written to by the secondary host Win12b during failover. And we'll reopen it to make sure that it was written. So that secondary host has access to all of the LUN's data during failover. So it was protected by the replication. Now we have corrected the site communications to the source site, site A. So let's go in Unisphere to that Unity A system, look at its connections, and it looks good. And we see that session is still failed over. So we'll go back to the Unity B system, which currently has the LUN in read-write mode. And we'll go to more actions for that session, and we'll select failback. And we see from this message that the failback operation is going to perform a full synchronization of the LUN, and that the destination, the replica LUN that is in production right now, will be in read-only mode during that full synchronization. So they're recommending to block access to that LUN. So we'll go back to Server Manager for the secondary host, and we'll take that disk offline. So there'll be no writing to that LUN during the failback. So that disk device is now offline, and we can go back to Unisphere, select that session, and perform the failback. All right, so the failback has been initiated, and after some amount of time, that operation completes, and it looks like our session state is active. Select it and we'll look at its properties. It says it's in sync from here. So we'll close that. Let's go on to the Unity A system, look at its session, and we see it's in a syncing state for that session. So it's doing that full synchronization. We'll look at its properties. See it's out of sync in that, doing that full synchronization from the Site B Unity system. And that full synchronization will take some amount of time. And now we see that state is active. We'll check the session, and it now is indeed in sync. So let's go to that primary host Win11a. And that host cannot see that disk device at this point in time. So let's go to Server Manager, to the File and Storage Services, Volumes, Disks. And we see the disk device, and it's currently offline, so we'll bring that online for the host. And now we see the disk device as sync rep protected volume drive letter E. We see the line of text that was written during failover, and we'll put a line in indicating it was written on the Site A system after failback from the primary server. So we've shown failover and failback and data access during those operations.
In this section of the demonstration, we're going to replicate file-based resources, an existing file-based resource on Unity A. So from the File section, we see a file system, fs_smb, 100 gig file system. We'll look at its shares. There are two shares, data and top dollar. We'll look at the NAS server tab, and we see NAS_SMB. That's the NAS server we're going to be replicating. Looking at its properties, we go to the Network tab, and we can see the network interface that's been assigned and configured on this NAS server. Its IP address is 64.225, and its preferred state is yes, meaning that interface is up and on the network. Now, from a client perspective, let's go and access the data share on that NAS server. And the share opens, and let's create a new text document so we can test I/O operations during the various replication operations we're going to perform. So the document opens, and we're going to write a line of text indicating it was written during normal production on Unity A. So we'll save and close. And we're going to open up that share again just to ensure that the data was indeed written as we expect it to be. The share opens, the line of text is in the document. So normal I/O operations for the client. And going back to Unisphere, on Unity A, we'll again access the NAS server properties, and we'll go to the Replication tab, and we're going to use the Configure Replication button. In the Replication Settings step of the Create Session Wizard, we're going to select the replication mode Synchronous, and we've only got a fiber channel connection to one other system, Unity B, so that's what's available. From the destination step, we can see the pool that the NAS server is going to be created on the destination, and information about the same resource on the destination for the file system. And we could select any of the existing pools to create that replica file system on. So we'll select next. In the summary, we see the configuration of replication we've selected. We're going to go ahead and configure that replication. And after some amount of time, the steps for creating the sessions will complete. And if we refresh it, we see the session for the NAS server is healthy and active. And we're going to go to the replication section of Unisphere. And we see the two sessions, one for the NAS server that's healthy and active, and one for the file system that is still in a syncing state. So it's a 100 gig file system. It takes some amount of time for that full synchronization to happen from Unity A to Unity B. And we'll update the status here. Still in a syncing state. So that full synchronization is still ongoing. We'll access the destination system, Unity B, and from its replication section, we see that both replication sessions are healthy and active for the NAS server and the file system. Let's take a look on the destination and see the objects that got created by this replication. And there's the replica file system. there are the two shares, and there is the replica NAS server, NAS_SMB. We'll look at its properties, and on Unity B is connected to a different network than Unity A. So we're going to go to the Network tab, and we're going to change its IP address. But first, we'll notice that the preferred state on this replica NAS server is set to no, meaning that interface is not up. We're going to go to the properties of that interface, and we're going to use the option to override address. So we're effectively changing the address of this interface that this NAS server uses. So it's going to be on the 65 network as opposed to the 64. So we changed it to 65.225. And that way, if we have to fail over to Unity B, the NAS server will work on the connected network that it's on the network that it's connected to. So we've changed the interface. Now, in this section, we've simulated loss of access to the Unity A system. And we can see the sessions are in a warning state, and the state is we've lost communication. We'll go to the Unisphere session for Unity A, and Unisphere is not available to us. From a client, we're going to access the share from that NAS server, NAS_SMB data. And after some amount of time, we get an error and it times out. We can't reach that network location. So we'll open up a command line and use the ping command and see if we can ping the interface of that Unity A NAS server. And the request times out. We can't, it's not available. So we've verified that no access to Unity A. So we'll go to Unity B, select the session for the NAS server, and perform a failover operation. And this would be termed an unplanned failover. And from the informative text at the top of this window, we see that access to the storage is going to be from Unity B. Unity B's resources are going to be read-write. And if we do fail back or resume replication to Unity A, a full synchronization is going to be required. So the failover operation is going, and it has completed. Both sessions are in a state of failed over. Replication is no longer going between the two sites. So from a client perspective, we're going to ping the IP address of the Unity B NAS server, 65.225, and it is up and online, meaning that preferred state is yes. So from that client, let's access the share. Share opens. There's the text document. Let's open it. There's the line of text that was written during normal production on Unity A. We'll add a line indicating it's written during failover to Unity B. Close and save the document. We'll close the share, and just one more time, access the share and ensure that the data was written as we expect it to. And it is. So the client has normal I/O operations during failover to Unity B. Now we've returned access to Unity A, and its Unisphere, its session to Unisphere is active again. And we see from the replication section that its sessions are indeed in failover. The same story can be seen from Unity B. So no replication is going right now. So with the NAS server session selected, we're going to perform a resume operation. And the resume operation is going to change direction of replication from Unity B to Unity A, and a full synchronization is going to be required. So any data that was written while that file system and NAS server were on Unity B, that data will be replicated to Unity A. And we see that the session for the NAS server is healthy and active. The file system is still in a syncing state because it's doing a full synchronization of that 100 gigs of possible data. Let's, from the client, let's close that share and open it up again. And the share opens. The document opens. The data that was in the document is still there. And we'll write a line of text indicating it was written during the syncing state for the resume operation. So normal client operations continue on Unity B. And we're just going to access that share one more time to ensure that data was indeed written as we expect. So normal client I/O operations to Unity B. Now from Unisphere, we'll just make sure both sessions now are healthy and active. And we can check the same on Unity A. So Unity A is now a destination. So in order to return replication, we're going to just check the status of that file system replication status, and it is healthy and active and consistent. So going back to Unity B, we're going to try and return replication as it was prior to the failover. So with the NAS server selected, we're going to perform a failover, and this would be known as a planned failover. So the planned failover is going to pause I/O operations. Then it's going to make the resource available on Unity A as read-write, and replication, the replication direction will be reversed. So at the end of this operation, we're going to be replicating from Unity A to Unity B, and the Unity A resource will be read-write. So we're going to check the client. We'll try to access the share. And we can't get to the share. It's not available on the network. And this is an issue really with the client. It knew that NAS server as the IP address of Unity B's NAS server. It's now on Unity A. So what we're going to have to do from the client perspective is clear the DNS resolver cache of the client. And we're going to use the ipconfig flush DNS command to flush its DNS resolver cache. And now we'll access the share again. The share opens. The text document is there. We'll write a line of text indicating it was written during the planned failover to Unity A. Close and save. Close the share. Re-access the share just to ensure that the I/O operation did work as expected. Share opens. The line of text is in the document. So I/O operations are normal for the client. And from the Unisphere perspective, the Unity B system is the destination system. As we see here, we refresh and get the latest status. So Unity B is the destination. Unity A will refresh its data, and it is the source. So replication has returned to how it was before the failover.
This concludes the demonstration. Thank you.